Good evening and welcome to a program devoted entirely to Lefties Losing It. Let's start, lefties, with my favourite moment over the weekend where President Donald Trump called out the far-left Maine Governor, Janet Mills, who's refusing to abide by federal laws and protect women's sport from male bodies. Grab the popcorn and enjoy this exchange.
Is Maine here, the governor of Maine? Well, are you not going to comply with it?
I'm complying with state and federal laws.
We are the federal law. Well, you better do it. You better do it because you're not going to get any federal funding at all if you don't. And by the way, your population, even though it's somewhat liberal, although I did very well there, your population doesn't want men playing in women's sports. So you better comply because otherwise you're not getting any federal funding.
See you in court.
Every state, good. I'll see you in court. I look forward to that. That should be a real easy one. And enjoy your life after governor because I don't think you'll be in elected politics.
Oh, doesn't she look mad there? Imagine being so committed to allowing men to invade women's sport that you go to court over it, that you defy federal laws. What sort of extreme left simpleton would do something like that? Well, ladies and gentlemen, here's something the Maine governor prepared earlier.
You can run, but you know it's ending. At the bottom of the grave, you're digging out.
I have no words for that. Let's check in with the former Veep, the woman who was one geriatric heartbeat away from the presidency before she squandered billions to run the worst campaign possible and lose all 7 swing states. Apparently, being a uniquely awful candidate entitles Kamala to some sort of a participation award. I assume this is what this is. I'll have more on that later with Josh Hammer, but I know what you'll want to hear. You want one of those inspirational Kamala speeches. The woman's oratory skills are unmatched.
And while we have no illusions about what we are up against in this chapter in our American story, this chapter will be written not simply by whoever occupies the Oval Office, nor by the wealthiest among us.
Ooh, she dropped the various accents there and actually stuck to the script. That was a very un-Kamala-like performance, I've got to say. Let's go to a more typical Kamala speech. This is from last week. I know you miss her vacuous word salads. I miss them.
Because then what do we have left? And the way that I see it also is that when we think about like these moments where we see things that are being taken, but also let's see it as a, nature abhors a vacuum. So where there's a vacancy, then let's fill it.
Yes, let's do that, Kamala. Let's do that right after happy hour is finished. Now, I have some depressing news for Lefties Losing It fans around the world, and this segment every single night gets millions of views online, and regular fans would know that MSNBC anchor Joy Reid has been a rich source of material for me, but alas, today she was sacked. Where will I find content like this?
In America, there's a thing about both white vigilantism and white tears, particularly male white tears. Really white tears in general, because that's what Karens are, right? They Karen out, and then as soon as they get caught, it's like, bring waterworks. White men can get away with that too. And it has the same effect. Even as the right tries to politicize the idea that masculinity is being robbed from American men by multiculturalism and wokeism, they still want to be able to have their tears.
I really do hope she's now got more time to post on social media because I need that sort of content. This show doesn't put itself together. I need the lefties to lose it. And not only is Joy Reid a nasty extreme left race baiter, but she's also stupendously stupid. Just listen to this analysis, if you can call it that, of Kamala Harris's election campaign.
I mean, this really was an historic, flawlessly run campaign. Queen Latifah never endorses anyone. She came out and endorsed. She had every prominent celebrity voice. She had the Taylor Swift, she had the Swifties, she had the Beehive. Like, you could not have run a better campaign in that short period of time. And I think that's still true.
Even the other MSNBC nincompoops looked embarrassed there, but I've got to say, I'm genuinely shattered that she's been fired. I've just got my fingers crossed that The View give her a role. You asked for it and you shall receive. Let's jump into a Joy Reid extravaganza. This is just going to be so much fun, so much broken, race-baiting, extreme left nastiness. As I said last night, I'm shattered that she's been sacked by MSNBC. Where else can I find content this utterly unhinged?
One side stands for freedom, while the other meets the textbook definition of fascism, namely a far-right dictatorial regime like Hitler's Germany or Franco's Spain or Mussolini's Italy, but also white-ruled South Africa before Mandela and the black majority took control.
Oh yes, she was obsessed with calling anyone who wasn't an American-hating Marxist a fascist or a racist.
We do have a fascist groundswell in parts of this country, mainly among white men, let's be clear. The racist tomahawk chop, the gesture and chant promoting stereotypes, caricatures, and frankly, hatred of Native American people. Similarities to what happened in Germany and what's happening now in America are just undeniable. History may not repeat verbatim, but it sure does rhyme.
She really is madder than a cut snake. And you'd remember I played a clip last night of Joy Reid mocking white women's tears. Well, look who's crying now.
My show had value, and that, I'm sorry, that what I was doing had value.
No, it had no value, Joy. It was just hysteria, lies, race-baiting hyperbole designed to agitate the ill-informed left who really don't need any further help in being angry and miserable. And if you feel sorry for Joy Reid, if you think I'm being a bit too harsh, just remember her glee when firefighters and police officers were sacked for not getting their COVID shots. Oh yes, we have the receipts.
It's a pattern that we've seen across the country with police unions and officers coming out against mandates. Seattle's police union called the mandate a public safety crisis, as if vaccines aren't for the public's safety. The city's police and firefighters who were fired for non-compliance made a very dramatic exit, marching to City Hall to turn in their boots. And a trooper went as far as to attack Governor Jay Inslee over the radio while claiming that he was being asked to leave because I'm dirty. I mean, no one said not being vaccinated was dirty, but okay then.
Charming. That diatribe went on for some time before she ended on this bit of misinformation and hysteria, accusing police officers of risking the lives of the public by not taking their COVID vaccine. And she also attacked officers for not being masked in a New York subway.
Police officers are supposed to protect and serve, but they're actually putting themselves ahead of the citizens they could infect. We constantly hear that police brutality cases wouldn't even have happened if only everyone just complied and followed all of their commands. But it's clear that some officers don't hold themselves to that same standard. They're literally refusing to comply with the law. Just take what happened at a New York subway stop yesterday, where a rider says he was harassed and then thrown out of the station for asking officers to wear masks, which, by the way, is the law. The NYPD says the event is under internal review. Guess all the cops former Governor Cuomo sent into the subway system are really making an impact. So for putting Americans in danger, officers and unions who are fighting against vaccine mandates, which essentially means fighting to make the public sick, are tonight's absolute worst.
She's just the worst, isn't she? Imagine being too much of a lefty loon even for MSNBC.
Keep Hitler out the White House. Hitler, White House. We keeping him out.
Restoring the name Fort Bragg sure looks like an attempt to resegregate the military. It's a right-wing fantasy land, like Disney World, but in hell. Come to Florida, the meanest place on earth.
This woman is so shameless and comfortable making racist comments that she called the great Clarence Thomas, Supreme Court Justice Clarence Thomas, a racial pejorative on live TV.
if somehow they manage to stumble into the Supreme Court, do any of you guys trust Uncle Clarence and Amy Coney Barrett and those guys to actually follow the letter of the law? No.
Just gross, and shame on the other two MSNBC anchors for not jumping in with a rebuke right there. Remember, this is the woman who a couple of months ago was telling Americans to not have Thanksgiving or Christmas dinner with their Republican family, to shun their own flesh and blood if they vote differently. And this next clip really captures the ugliness of Joy Reid and the far left in general. This rant went on, I don't know, for like 10 minutes. Here's 42 seconds that gives you an idea of the endless bile of the far left.
These are the people who say the undocumented, who they get to call illegal immigrants, like the Pilgrims had permission to come here, have to suffer the consequences of their actions, right? They made the choice to overstay their visas or come into our country illegally, so if they get deported, consequences. But you right-wingers shouldn't have to suffer the consequences of your votes? You don't want to be around me because I voted for fascism. No fair. I'm coughing on you with COVID, but you want me to wear a mask for your safety? No fair. My body, my choice. Well, here's an alternative thought. Make your own dinner, MAGA. Make your own sandwiches. Wipe your own tears. Troll amongst yourselves with Elon and leave us alone. You
really have to marvel at the delusion there, the thought that Republicans are sad about not dining with the likes of her. The audacity is, I've got to say, off the charts. She genuinely thinks Republicans regret their vote. They are the ones who miss out because cousin Sarah with the nose piercings and the green hair boycotts Thanksgiving dinner.
But if you expect the 73 million who voted for the prosecutor, not the felon, and particularly the 92% of black women who voted for Kamala to give you a cookie for your vote, a trophy, a hug, a high five, you might be asking too much. If we want to eat with you, we will. But if we just want some peace over the holidays and we don't want to put up with your trolling while we eat our tofurkey, get over it. Stop acting like we owe you, and for God's sakes, stop whining. It's embarrassing.
Joy Reid telling others to stop whining. I've heard it all now. And already we've got her sad little fan base pushing for a boycott of MSNBC.
Joy Reid won 2 NAACP Image Awards this week. Joy Reid has been an award-winning journalist. She is brilliant. There's nobody who can touch Joy. And just because you find other people to put in a time slot who look just like Joy does not mean that that is Joy's voice. So it's #TV off because we are boycotting MSNBC. We will not be watching. We want to ensure that we are writing letters, sending emails, posting on social, telling people how much Joy Reid means to us.
Boycotting MSNBC, that's activism I can get behind. Keep it up, folks. Yes, we're going to check in with our favourite little Swedish doom goblin, Greta Thunberg, who seems to have forgotten about climate change scaremongering. She's now all about Gaza. She's in Copenhagen in a hijab.
Currently outside Maersk, one of the biggest shipping companies in the world, only the last year, has shipped thousands of tons of military equipment to Israel to arm them during their genocide in Gaza. And we are here to demand that Maersk must stop all the transportation of weapons and weapon components to Israel. They must terminate all contract and investment that support the genocide and occupation of Palestine. And Denmark must implement a full military embargo on Israel. We are here because we know that Maersk are not going to do it for us. We have overwhelming evidence showing that Israel is committing a genocide in Palestine. People have been trying to resist for so long, but they are still not listening.
Oh, she's insufferable, isn't she? But she's got evidence, folks. Greta was among 20 lefties losing it, arrested by Danish police. Has that girl ever done anything other than make a massive nuisance of herself? And never forget, that extremist activist was feted by not just the world's media, but by world leaders who allowed her to lecture them, and some of them listened to her. And here's someone who I don't think would have ended up in Lefties Losing It, Republican Congressman Dan Crenshaw from the great state of Texas. But here he is saying he'll kill, or unalive as the kids say, Tucker Carlson.
Have you ever met Tucker?
If I ever meet him, I'll effing kill him? Not joking, that's what he said. A Republican congressman from Texas. How has he ended up on Lefties Losing It? Well, maybe I should let Tucker explain.
The single most left-wing member of Congress I've ever met personally is a Republican from this area who has no interest in the United States whatsoever and does not even pretend. I'm not going to name names. Yeah, it's Dan Crenshaw, the most liberal, most left-wing person I've ever met.
Dan Crenshaw cannot be a congressman again. You just can't. It's just too insulting.
You know, some of the redder states have elected rhinos, Republican in name only. Best fix that before we have another Mitt Romney on our hands. Now to The View, the dangerously deranged ladies of The View who cannot stomach even a few seconds of sense being spoken on their show. Here, Sarah Haynes talks about the heartbreaking story of the Bieber's family being slaughtered by Hamas, mother and 2 children. But no, Whoopi had to jump in with some both sides arguments. And really, this is quite appalling.
These 2 little boys, Ariel and Kafir, they were 4 and 9 months old at the time, and they became, with their mother, kind of the symbol of October 7th, the tragic symbol. And our hearts are with Israel and the family. I mean, this is just the most heart-wrenching part for everyone.
I think because there is nothing positive about any of this.
And their mothers' remains were also returned. Were also now returned.
Yeah. But you know, for everyone who's affected, for everyone, our hearts should go out.
She just had to jump in with some both sides nonsense. You couldn't let a tribute just go. Just let the family have a tribute paid to.
And again, I just find it so shocking that, in a way, this is, you know, when we talk about things like Hamas, and I look at where we're putting our energy, I think, well, aren't these, who are the bad guys now?
Hamas are the bad guys, Whoopi, or should I use your real name here, Karen Johnson. Hamas are the bad guys, but she wasn't done yet. She then went on a rather incoherent rant.
My point is, when do we stop saying it's these folks or these folks? When do we say, here's the enemy? Here is the enemy. This is what the enemy does. This is what the enemy does to children.
Yeah, that's what.
This is what the enemy does to children in Africa. This is what the enemy does to children all over the world because they're the enemy. That's what the enemies do. And why are we supportive of enemies that we know that our sons and grandfathers have fought in the past? What's happening, y'all?
They don't care.
That's the question.
What's happening, y'all? I think what's happening is Whoopi desperately trying not to say what she clearly wants to say. This is, after all, the woman who said it depends who you talk to when discussing whether Hamas are a terrorist organisation or not, and who claimed the Holocaust wasn't about race. It was just white people killing white people.
Also, if you're going to do this, then let's be truthful about it, because the Holocaust isn't about race. No, it's not about race, but these are 2 white groups of people.
Well, how do we have to black people
see them as white people?
But you're missing the point. You're missing the point. The minute you turn it into race, it goes down this alley.
Now to the fallout from MSNBC's sacking of Joy Reid. Rachel Maddow is irate and doing monologues on her endless love for Joy. I guess we shouldn't be too surprised that one crazed far-left propagandist is going to admire another one. Here is the Russian collusion hoaxer, Rachel, emoting.
There is no colleague for whom I have had more affection and more respect than Joy Reid. I love everything about her. I have learned so much from her. I have so much more to learn from her. I do not want to lose her as a colleague here at MSNBC. And personally, I think it is a bad mistake to let her walk out the door. I will tell you, it is also unnerving to see that on a network where we've got 2, count them, 2 non-white hosts in primetime, both of our non-white hosts in primetime are losing their shows, as is Katie Fang on the weekend. And that feels worse than bad, no matter who replaces them. That feels indefensible, and I do not defend it.
indefensible. Are you saying MSNBC is racist, Rachel? Is that what you're implying there? And if so, why would such a self-righteous soul such as yourself want to work for a sinister, bigoted organisation? Now to the wonderful Megyn Kelly, who had a very different take on Joy's sacking, a more reality-based take.
Single tear, white woman tears happening right here, Joy. She was officially fired over the weekend because she's a racist, horrible news anchor with no ratings. And that's really been the truth for a long time. MSNBC's under new management, and I guess they decided to come to grips with reality.
Oh, and didn't that dose of truth set off deranged dimwit Don Lemon, who had this to say to Megyn Kelly? Not the first time here that Don has had an issue with women. Remember, he had to apologise for sexist comments before he was sacked from CNN. Well, he's really, really angry again.
So let me just say to Megyn Kelly, in my 30-some years as a journalist and my 50-some years as a person of color, go yourself. Okay?
Why is he pretending to drink from an obviously empty coffee mug? I think I might just start doing that myself. Just why? Do we need props now? It's weird. To CNN now, and Jake Tapper has written a book on the cover-up about Joe Biden's cognitive decline. Jake Tapper has written this book. Are you kidding me? This is the Jake Tapper who is completely complicit in this cover-up. Just have a look.
I think what we see on stage with Joe Biden, Jake, is very clearly a cognitive decline.
Okay.
That's what I'm referring to. It makes me uncomfortable to watch somebody on stage search for
that's so amazing. It's so amazing to me that
try and figure out an answer.
A cognitive decline.
Well, when you're trying to tell me that what I was suggesting was
I think that you were mocking his stutter. Yeah, I think you were mocking his stutter, and I think you have absolutely no standing to diagnose somebody's cognitive decline. I would think that somebody in the Trump family would be more sensitive to people who do not have medical licenses diagnosing politicians from afar.
Talk about weapon-grade chutzpah. Now, here is some virulent racism from South Africa, where white people continue to be dehumanised. This next character is known as Nota. He's a music executive, and here he talks on a podcast about the science of why white people are inferior species and savages that are going to die out.
We don't understand white people. White people are inferior species to us. We are Homo sapiens. They've got Neanderthal blood in them. This is the science, and this is not science that was done by black people, it was done by them. You understand? They studied this, and they realized that they're inferior to blacks. So when you look at the white population shrinking and shrinking and shrinking, for us it makes no sense to descend into the savagery that they have. Whatever land that they're holding on to, either way, their numbers are dwindling. Whatever leadership that they had is dying out as well. And you know about wealth disappearing after the third generation that it's passed down to, you know. So they're on the last generation. We're dealing with the weakest whites that the world has ever seen. We've got different categories of evolution of apes. You know what I mean? If we are all apes, we are at the echelon of that. Whites are a step below because they've also got Neanderthal DNA.
He's quite the scientist, this bloke, isn't he? Just a superior intellect, and he wasn't done yet. Here he explains that white folk are like infants.
They will never get it. They're not the same level of human beings we are. So we need to start treating them like infants. When you see an Elon Musk, you see the richest man in the world. No, you should look at him and say, this is the richest baby in the world. We're better than white people at everything that we do, that they do. Better than them at every single thing. Every single thing. The best person in every single thing that both black people and white do is black. Everything. Every single thing.
Yep. Moving along. Let's end Lefties Losing It with a sketch from Nick Peterson on the TDS phenomenon, Trump derangement syndrome. Is there a cure for those afflicted with this condition?
How has the election made you feel on a scale from 1 to 10, with 10 being Nazi? My name is Dr. Nick Peterson, and I specialize in those suffering from TDS, Trump derangement syndrome. Hello, I'm Dr. Peterson. How are you? Well, Donald Trump is a felon. Nope. I asked how you were doing. The majority of Americans can mentally handle election results on both sides of the aisle. However, there's this small, albeit growing, group of, I don't want to say Americans, but people that are just disconnected from reality. Fascist. And honestly, it makes diagnosing these people a whole lot easier. I just check their social media. Gone are the days when you just search your symptoms on WebMD at home by yourself. Now they record their symptoms and post them for the world to see. The haircut is also a dead giveaway. So, what brings you in today? Oh, I don't know. Maybe it's the orange democracy-destroying, Putin-loving dictator. All right, so mental illness.
And that's it from me.